Hi everyone, welcome to MartechBrain, a NetCore initiative where we speak to the best brains in MarTech and delve deep into one topic. My guest today is Rohit Raghav, Group Product Manager at Walmart Global Tech. Rohit has over a decade of product experience and entrepreneurship experience across e-commerce, hospitality, entertainment, hyperlocal commerce, and communications industries. He has worked at Wink, Oyo, Snapdeal, and Accenture, in addition to a couple of startups as co-founder in his past life. Rohit's chosen topic for our conversation today, and one which I'm really looking forward to, is the product management canvas. And we will discuss about how to bring a systems thinking approach to product management and how can it drive the marketing product interlock. So a fascinating discussion coming up. Thank you everyone and welcome to MartechBrain, Rohit.
Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate this opportunity. And I think when I was at Airtel, we started working with NetCore. It has always been a fantastic experience with the NetCore's capabilities, how we have been able to leverage. We were able to leverage those at Airtel. So I'm super excited about this conversation. And thanks for doing this initiative. I think it just helps the whole network so much. Yeah.
So let's start with the theme that you've picked up today. So explain to us what this idea of a canvas is.
Sure. So during my well over a decade of product management experience, right? So I'll share the biggest barrier, which probably sums up all the barriers in a way. See, different parts of organizations speak different languages, right? And move with different velocities. So the biggest role for a product manager in any organization is essentially to be the translator and the gears through which these different parts can align, right? Now, this is the biggest challenge especially for product leadership who have to connect the dots across the organization. That's where system thinking is extremely critical, because without understanding how the different dots connect, how different people behave in different parts of organization, how the overall business DNA is, and how each organization manifests a different variant of that DNA itself, till then it's extremely difficult to do this translation and interconnection across different parts of organization. And that's what leads to system thinking mindset to solving some of these problems.
And I think you have a few slides for us to actually delve deeper into this. So let's begin with those.
Sure, definitely. Happy to. Let me just share my screen.
Yes.
So please let me know when you can see it.
Yep, absolutely.
Perfect. So great. So let's get started. So as you rightly called out, we are looking at systems thinking approach to product management and how that is different from traditional approaches, and how to drive product market interlock using that framework of product management canvas. Right. So I'll start with the introduction of product management canvas and what exactly that is as a framework. So essentially every business you look at, right, there's a demand side, there's a supply side, and there are interconnections across those demand and supply. So I'll just share the 4 different layers of product management canvas to start with, right? So to start with, there's a demand side, which is essentially the customer acquisition and engaging those customers with a view to retain them, monetize them, and deliver on the value proposition at the core of it. On the supply side, typically it's sourcing, logistics, and then feeding whether it is e-commerce, whether it is entertainment, whether it is hospitality, cataloging those, whatever we need to sell to the customer, right? And then we have demand and supply connected through channels and discovery mechanisms, right? It could be channels very significantly based on the business that is there. And discovery mechanism typically is products around search, discovery, recommendations, personalization kind of offerings. The other 2 levers are revenue and cost and data platforms, right? While demand and supply gets a lot of emphasis, I think what is often missing is an organization-wide understanding of what are the revenue drivers for the company, what are the cost drivers for the company. And then these are connected through business and financial model, leveraging and interconnecting with the data platform. Data platform, while there's a lot of organizations who say that they're data focused, they're data driven, but there are massive chasms. When you're looking at, I build the product, I have the data, I drive with data, and I win with data. These are 4 different stages, which are essentially mapping to data, information, insights, and actions and outcomes cycle, where there is chasm, which are often, there is a lot of technology solutions available at each step of these stages, right? But how to interconnect across and hop over those chasms is an extremely difficult challenge. So data platform needs a specific focus. So this is sort of the first sort of core. These are the two levels where four core pillars and how to interconnect those. Then there is a demand flag. Sure,
one
please.
question, Rohit. Now, when you're talking of the data platform, is this what companies call a CRM or a CDP, or it's much bigger than that?
It's much bigger than that. So if you think of marketing, for example, you called out CRM, right? So if you look at marketing, marketing is an overlay on all of this, right? Marketing will work on the demand side, supply side. CRM will take inputs from every product and service. Okay. I'll give you a small example, which I am thinking about of late. So suppose banks, right? Banks have this robust CRM, so to speak, but it is very multi-channel. It's not omni-channel. So channels are not integrated. Bank issues me a checkbook today, right? Which is essentially issued through a physical channel or through a call center. They know which leaves number I have on the checkbook. When the checkbook is getting over, there can be a trigger in their systems, which can just automatically issue me the next checkbook, right? But still I have to get on a 15-minute call with a call center or go to their website, log into the app, and then request a checkbook, right? So this is the whole mindset of using data. And a lot of times this data is so accessible, and it's not just about CRM, it's also about all the revenue and cost as well. So what is my unit economics, which is the next level of flywheel, right? So this is the third level of intervention that comes through, which are the different flywheels in each of these different four core pillars, right? And that's where data becomes extremely, extremely crucial. Do I know my right market segments? Do I know which segments are most profitable? Do I know cost to serve of each segment? And that's where I think we'll talk about the marketing product interlock subsequently as well. This is the third level.
Yeah, this is a very powerful graphic, I think, which captures the essence. And what you're basically saying is that you need, for a good business, you need to connect all of these. For many businesses today, these are operating in silos, especially now when we are seeing a shift of a lot of physical world offline businesses onto online and the digital channel. Unless you connect this, you are not going to get the flywheel effects across your business.
Exactly. Because if I don't know, I'm getting a lot of supply, right? I'm whatever business, e-commerce, real estate, I'm getting a lot of supply. But for which demand I'm getting that supply for? Or I'm getting a lot of demand. I have invested like say $10 million this month to get a lot of users into the system. But for which supply? And what is the proposition for those people, right? Many times smallest of startups and largest of corporates end up operating like a monolith in these areas.
Got it. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. So the last level is where these flywheels start feeding off each other, right? So once I have a deep understanding of how my unit economics are working, so what is the every element of cost that is involved, then I can understand to which customer I have to deliver what value. I'll give an example of music streaming industry. Now, when you play, I have worked at Ghana and Wink in music streaming, right? So when you play a song, I need to know what is the cost to company of playing that song, which includes cost of technology development, cost of infrastructure, money paid to the music label, plus any overheads which have to be sort of distributed cost across the entire activity-based costing sort of thing, right? Which will put some cost to this the stream. Similarly, you need to understand revenue per stream, right? So how much ad revenue I can make per user per month, and how much subscription revenue I can make per user per month, right? That will give actual unit economics dynamics. Now, if there is a customer, so if you look at the socioeconomic pyramid, bottom tier of the socioeconomic pyramid, with all due respect, does not have a digital marketing potential, right? So there won't be any ads to show to them either, mostly. So users in that segment are actually non-monetizable. Only cost is there because they will not buy subscription, and will not be able to serve quality ads to them, which can be monetized at a good price point. So that's the mindset of unit economics, which should feed into demand and supply. And then we talk to supply and we get a different kind of supply from hyper local labels, which music also might be more appealing to that audience, right? So this is how everything comes together. And then from inside flywheel, we will get insight of which customers belong to which tier, so that we can act appropriately across all the flywheels for them.
No, this is fantastic. I think you've captured really the essence of a successful business. What a business needs to do, I think, in one graphic. Fantastic. Rohit. So one question here.
Please.
Essentially, if we think about it, what we are basically saying is that there is a lot of data. Every action that suppliers do or customers do, so supply side and demand side, so the products coming in and customers taking action, so that is creating data. And then what businesses are really working towards is driving customer actions. Okay, so you want to sort of also nudge them along. You want them, because finally the goal is you don't want the person to just browse pages or products. You want them to complete a transaction.
Yeah.
And you want the data to essentially optimize what products are shown, what recommendations are shown, so the actions are more effective.
Definitely, you have hit the nail on the head. And that's where I think once the interconnections are set up, there is phenomenal amount of value any platform business can bring to the supply side using the demand side data. For example, I'll give you a couple of examples. For example, if there is a music label, which is a new music label, or there's an indie artist, if their music gets played, if they can benefit immensely from the dashboard that is created from the demand side, right? Similarly, if there is an e-commerce business and there is a supply side information, so if suppose Unilever is coming and selling on my platform, right? Then Unilever is a global seller. They have tremendous insights about customer channels, their behaviors, their decision making. All that insights I can take to the demand side and manifest those in my demand side behaviors. So I think that's exactly what is required, because and it is not just about insights, etc. There can actually be monetizable opportunities that can be cross-pollinated across these two areas. So if there is a very unique music, it can be monetized through the customers, and customer insights can be monetized on the supply side, for example.
And I think just to add one element more to what you're saying is that from a customer's point of view, what our customers are looking perhaps for two things. They are saying that, look, irrespective of which channel I am on, help me continue my journey. So the true omni-channel personalization experience is what customers are seeking. And second is that they would like actions to be done in as few clicks as possible. Sort of the ideal is a single click, and the example that you talked about earlier, or in fact 0 clicks. If my checkbook is getting over, don't waste my time in connecting up with customer service reps and getting that. So anticipate what I'm doing, predict what I'm likely to do, and do that across channels. That's really the ideal scenario from a customer standpoint.
Yes, sir. And NBA, next best action. Next best. So every company moves from reactive to responsive to proactive to automated. That's a typical journey of any capability in an organization. So, but I have today is the bank is reacting to my need for a checkbook. Responsive is they can do it faster, they can do it across channels. That's becoming responsive. Proactive is when they issue me automatically. Automated is when like they can figure out based on my checkbook usage, etc., like whether I need a 25 leaf, 50 leaf. So they don't even need to ask me that. Proactively, they have to ask me how many checks you need in a checkbook. But in an automated world, they will just determine it using data, how many checkbooks I need, 50 leaves, 100 leaves, 25 leaves, etc.
Perfect. Good. So I think this is great. Let's move on to the next slide and we'll dig deeper into this.
Sure. Great. So sorry, I did not sort of put animation on this, but
No,
essentially,
go ahead.
Yeah. So just, I think marketing and product have to be joined at the hip, because I think product is essentially like there's so much to product management that is driven from marketing. And there is so much to marketing today that is driven by product and technology that this umbilical cord is pretty much the lifeline for business in so many different ways, right? And these two functions predominantly have the shared ownership of making sure that everybody in the company has one view of the customer, one view of the value proposition, one view of the channel, and one view of the dollar, right? So by one view of customer, I mean, does everyone in the company, whether that someone is an engineer, whether someone in the customer support, whether someone in the field ops, whether in the business development or sales function, understands which are the target market customer segments that we are targeting? What is our value proposition for each of those? What are those customers' behaviors, preferences, decision-making habits, how they live their life? What are their needs, wants, pains? I know it sounds cliched, but it's shocking how many organizations don't get it at all, by the way, right? So I think the devil is, of course, in the details, but this is what I fundamentally believe. And then we go to the proposition. Does everybody have the same understanding of proposition for each market segment? Because this is a critical input to what features we build. Competitive benchmarking. How will proposition evolve as the company grows? God forbid if company gets into degrowth and gets into a tailspin, how will that proposition evolve? Which parts of proposition still have to stick around? What is the cost revenue structure? I'm going to the dollar structure, but what is the cost and revenue structure of delivering that proposition to the customer? Which part of proposition customer is paying for, right? So I think understanding of all that, one view of proposition, delivering that consistently and monetizing that consistently with a view on the cost of delivering that proposition is absolutely essential. Many a times business just go very monolithic on acquisition of supply, monolithic on acquisition of demand, and don't get a sense of like where exactly the money is getting burnt. And by the time they realize money is gone, it's too late. The third piece is, of course, one of the channels. It sounds obvious again, but does everybody understand how my Android users behave differently from web, or how the same user behave differently on web and Android? It's surprising how many organizations don't have a clue, right? Or how those variations across channel happen. Which channel customer prefers why, in what scenarios, in what use cases, and then are my touch points activated? So if there's a point of sale, if I am running a retail business, there is a point of sale in my store. What is the effective view of channel? Is there a consistent view of channel? Do I understand the cost, revenue structure of channel? Do I understand my user adoption of those channels and how the handoffs across those channels, right? As you called out earlier in the discussion, the true omni-channel, which is different from multi-channel, right? So understanding channel performance, and then of course all of this comes together one view of the dollar. How much I'm spending to acquire the customer, retain the customer, how much I'm taking to serve the customer, what is my revenue mix, what are my supply side commercials. I think it's surprising how much impact a fantastic marketing team can have on these elements of supply side as well, because they understand the market, they understand the segment. If that insight is demonstrated to the supply side, a lot of negotiations, a lot of discussions can become much more win-win than currently perceived to be. So this is where I think this is sort of the shared outcomes scope for product and marketing function.
Great. So now when we look at this in a little bit more depth, what we are basically saying is that across an organization, this idea of one view needs to permeate. And obviously it starts again with availability of data across the organization. And today, of course, because interactions are digital, brands are able to, or businesses are able to collect pretty much data at every touch point. So one of the key starting points, Rohit, for this has to be that the business has to make a commitment to collecting data at every customer interaction. And then that goes into a data platform and then you build from there.
Exactly, sir. So I think the touch point interface, right? I think, and again, to your point, right, businesses are able to collect data. I think the biggest barrier that I have seen is the organization itself, whether it is the DNA of the organization, whether it is the people within the organization, whether it is the reward system in the organization. Too much data. Like if imagine an organization which is epitome of this 100% data, right? That will not work for a lot of people in the organization because it just brings too much transparency and too much visibility into everything at every level, right? So I think organizations have to really look inwards and understand how to go through those DNA on organizational barriers. Technology is pretty much there and technology can be built out. It's not a big deal. So is the owner of that touch point comfortable with getting that data into the system for that touch point is the question sometimes.
Correct. And who should be the person, or which are the 2 or 3 most important teams or individuals who have to lead this digital transformation?
Yes, so I think the CPO, the CTO and the CMO, like whoever is heading these 3 functions, have to be really convinced, and it has to be driven by CEO as a single person.
So product, marketing, technology, so with the CEO's interaction.
Exactly, because this is a CEO initiative, or in a larger organization, it might be multi-CXO initiative. That's the only way such an initiative can work, and doesn't matter what is the size of the company. Till Series B, Series C funded company, it may work just on founders' instructions. But after that, in Series D onwards, even startups will need that very strong top-down mandate for some of these things. And I think once this starts happening, I think, I'll just make one more quick point. It's important to have those quick wins for every stakeholder. So if someone is a supply technology team, supply product manager, they have to be able to see how it will help their pods win in delivering their own metrics. So that is essential. Otherwise, if it becomes a too long drawn a journey without tactical wins, quick wins, iterations, it will just die down on its own without taking off.
Excellent. And let's now get to the interlock, the product and marketing interlock, which is the next slide that you have. Let's talk through that. And I think that's really the key element in completing this canvas that you've laid out so beautifully.
Yeah, sure. So these two slides sort of come together into this, right? So where we are looking at each of the interface, what exactly marketing and product should strive to do together, right? And of course, there has to be a loop all connecting all four of these colored boxes as well at some stage, but I just stick to individual for now. So I think, first of all, I think there are just too many channels today, right? From a marketing standpoint, if you look at a marketer today, I can talk to customer through Facebook, Twitter, all sorts of social media. Now there is a TikTok where I can talk through Snap. Then I have traditional channels which already exist, which might be a website, an app, etc., etc. And of course, I do ATL campaigns as well to talk to the customers, right? Now, in such an environment, how do we identify, evaluate, deploy, measure, and optimize all these channels is the biggest pain point for a marketer. So how can product and technology teams understand that pain and make it measurable? Like the cred ad, hey, just do a simple voiceover, download cred, right? That simplicity of download cred, right? After all the work they have done for that ad. So I think just understanding what works for customers, that's a marketing insight. The way Swiggy runs their ads on TV shows how well they understand their customer. The way the Swiggy runs their email campaigns shows how well they understand their customers, right? They are inside the psyche of them. So that's one aspect. Second aspect is what we are communicating to customers on each channel. And on each channel, what is my value proposition communication and what is the delivery? When marketing goes ahead and invests $2 to $3 million on it, like maybe $10 million on a TV campaign, goes ahead and shouts over the top a value proposition, has technology, ops, and product lined up the ducks to deliver on that? Maybe not, right? And when that 10, 15, $20 million has gone down the drain because of value proposition is not delivered, right? And the measurability of that delivery, right? Solution design. So a lot of solutions themselves need marketing brains, very strong marketing brains, right? The user experience can have marketing inputs. Personalization type of products can have marketing inputs. Channel design can have marketing inputs. Any sort of CRM products, technology products will have marketing inputs for sure. Financial products can have marketing inputs based on unit economics, segments, all that input should go into financial products as well. And the go-to-market strategy and execution. Now, while again, this is very cliched, but the surprising gap in product world is feature marketing. We are very good with, hey, I have launched a big app. When I launch a small feature on that app, right? Am I taking it to customers the right way? Am I taking it to the right market segments? Have I built it for the right market segments to start with, right? And then how will I communicate to those market segments the value proposition of that particular feature? So I think feature marketing is completely broken today in a lot of different ways. So this was a customer, the supply side is similar, right? So making sure that we have the right products, right assortment based on the customer segment. So supply team should talk to marketing and understand what kind of customer segments and what kind of supply we need, how ready our channel is extremely critical. For example, if I'm an e-commerce platform, can I get from a Unilever or a Procter & Gamble all their social media marketing content as well, right? Or can I work to a third-party content aggregator that aggregates content from Samsung, LG, Sony? There are multiple companies that do that around the world. Can I integrate their content into my platform with a click, right? So that is what marketing should push for as well. Like we don't have the right information on the item page from where we can get, you figure out the technology, but I'm telling you, this is not the right information for my customers to make the purchase decision. So how to solve it, something product and technology can figure out, but what and why, marketing has a crucial role. Similarly, we talked about the revenue side. I think this is very much understood, and this is very well understood by everybody, but it's just the execution where we understand what is the revenue mix, what is the cost to serve mix, what is my channel cost mix, what is my customer lifecycle value. I think there's a lot of intent. So some organization, of course, do lip service to these things, but there's a lot of intent in a lot of organizations. But where it fails is people don't come together because people don't see shared value in some of this. If give unlimited budget to demand, hey, get whatever users you want. I am giving you 5 crore rupees for this month. They're not going to listen to anybody, right? They're just going to go and try to get that money spent in the market. So I think the data platform is fairly obvious, like how to build user, content, item, channel 360 degrees. So I think one key point I'll make here there is that it's not just user that has a persona. Item has a persona. Channel has a persona. Right? Many times businesses are just stuck with customer persona, which is fundamentally wrong. Everything has a persona. Unless I have a persona for everything, I cannot connect them together. In music world, for example, I know user persona of listening, but if I don't know song persona, I don't build a graph of artists, I don't build a graph of labels. I can't build anything, right? So I think that's the three sort of slides I had prepared. I think we can discuss further about these things.
I think this is very well put together. Uh, you did a fantastic job, I think, in getting it all together, Rohit. So let me ask you a question which I've been thinking about. So different companies essentially end up at different points along each of these journeys. See, in many cases, um, people basically get the general idea directionally. Yes, this is where one has to go. Now, I think one thing from what you're saying, which is very critical, is that different stakeholders in an organization have to get alignment together. Okay, so because without this, what you call the shared values, etc. Because one thing is, yeah, each department, product, marketing, demand, supply, all have to do it in their silos. But the real value comes when the interlocking, when the connectivity between these different departments happen. So what are the barriers which really prevent companies from making this happen?
Great point. Great question, sir. So I think there are a few fundamental barriers, right? And I'll start with, does everyone understand at the leadership level, at least, the value of connecting across? I think sometimes because organizations may not have that much data, so a lot of that, the value, the monetary value of that interconnect is difficult to comprehend, right? So someone needs to have that leap of faith that this is something that needs to be done for the business. And another reason why there are some barriers besides a lack of ability of data and lack of quantifiability is also a lot of these things are long term. This won't give result in 1 month. This won't give result in 3 months, 6 months. This will manifest over years, right? This almost has to be coded into the DNA of the organization. And you'll be surprised how many companies don't even know what their DNA is, because their DNA changes based on growth stage of the company, how much funding is raised, etc., right? In the case of startups, right? So I think, and there are some fantastically, phenomenally well-run startups as well. I'm just quoting as an example. There might be challenges in some startups, right? That's a one set of barriers, that like the leadership's understanding of grasping and making sure that driving it. The second barrier is the product technology organization, right? So a lot of this work is non-glamorous. It is not building next generation recommendation platform all the time, right? A lot of this is business process automation. A lot of this is grunt work, because demand side, there might be phenomenal apps. Supply side might be working in Excel sheets. So product manager on supply side or engineer on supply side is not going to build the most glamorous interface or most glamorous integrations. They are going to do business process automation to start with. That's where the journey will start. Are engineering and product managers up for that challenge of going through the grind to get it off the ground, right? So that's the second challenge. I think another related challenge at product and technology side is build versus buy. So a lot of initial stages problems can be solved by engaging a partner. A lot of those problems can be solved with and I think last 2 years, the way SaaS has transformed pretty much every element of value creation opportunity that organizations can leverage. There has to be a very conscious attempt what we absolutely need to build and what we can buy, license, acquire from other players. So that's another set of barriers. I think it all summed up as, I think ultimately it's all about value. So I think there has to be a disproportionate value created by doing this. And it's a collective effort for everyone to wrap their head around that collective value, which will take effort of 6 months to 9 months, maybe a year, but which will reap great dividends later on. Now we are operating in VUCA world. COVID has given us a shock that resilience cannot come without getting these pillars and these interconnections in place.
So one sort of final question on this, Rohit, is that if you were to meet CEOs of companies, and if there are one or two things, of course, one or two things which you could talk to them about, and of course, they'll be at different stages in this digital journey. But if there are one or two core things which, as advice that you could give to either founders of startups or entrepreneurs starting on these journeys, or even CEOs of large companies leading this transformation, what would that be?
I think, yeah, that's a great question. Let me ponder over it for a second. I think, first of all, I think leader, whether it's a CEO slash CXO slash board, should know the DNA of the organization, right? And the business model of the organization very clear. Even if it's ambivalent, even if it's ambiguous for at their level, it should be communicated unequivocally in consistent manner to all parts of the organization. And the DNA and business model understanding has to be one click down, how each part of organization needs to have their own flavor of the DNA as well, right? So I think that DNA alignment is one of the fundamental things that needs to be done. Second is, I will say, start with unit economics. So any business that understands the revenue and the cost properly, right? Because that's revenue and cost, where the dollar comes from, where the dollar goes, encompasses pretty much everything that company is doing, right? So if my business model or DNA commands that I'm demand focused, I don't care so much about supply, supply is unlimited, then they can operate accordingly. And then unit economics will reveal that demand supply is side, because there's so much supply, so we can move the cost levers there, and the margins will go up if we do this thing on the demand side. So I think DNA and the unit economics is where the starting point will be, with an understanding of how these two manifest across different parts of organization, and how that shared understanding is developed into better integrated products across the areas.
So that was fantastic. I think in the last 30 minutes, you've given us a amazing view of really how to go about building the next generation digital organization. I think amazing, Rohit.
Thanks a lot, sir.
As we go forward, the last part of our program, we are on a lighter note, what I call the 5 ones. So quick short answers to one future trend or tech that excites you.
Okay, I was not expecting that, but yeah, sure. So as long as it's not about which movie you like, I am fine. Yes. I struggle with those answers. But yeah, so I think I'm really, really excited about Omnichannel. And it's not just about e-commerce, where the true Omnichannel is taking shape. I worked on my first Omnichannel assignment when I was at Accenture in 2012 for a telco. Mm-hmm. And I think it has taken almost a decade for that Omnichannel germinated seeds to flower now and become full-grown trees. And so I think that's one, and that's not just because of, as I said, because in an e-commerce, but also in content. I can get content anywhere, in my car, on my TV, on my laptop, on my device. And I think the way this, on my fridge, I can order grocery from my refrigerator now, right? I have a screen on my refrigerator where I can continue watching, right? So I think this omni-channel will definitely drive a significant value for businesses and the customers if done right. Education is omni-channel now. Correct. Hospitality will become omni-channel with AR, VR when people are not traveling. So yeah, so phenomenal times ahead for us. Yeah, I think omni-channel is one thing that excites.
And I think one thing, what you said earlier, which I think I should reiterate. See, omni-channel is different from multi-channel. A lot of companies are becoming multi-channel, but omni-channel is essentially, from a customer's point of view, is a one view and a continuity and experience. I think that's very important. So I can leave one channel somewhere and I can call up, or I can interact with another channel, and there should be continuity. So it's not that just I have a e-commerce and I have a physical store. If I buy something online, how easy is it for me to return something in a store? So this omni-channel as opposed to multi-channel, I think is important to highlight.
Yeah, definitely. Indeed. And I think that's where pitfalls are as well, because that's where real intelligence comes in. So if I go and return a white executive shirt at a store, then, and I say size misfit, then I should get a notification on app. The store you are in has a 38 or 40 size in the same shirt. Or we don't have a white shirt. Why don't you try a blue executive shirt, which is also wrinkle free? Can I get that notification? Can that appear on my home screen when I return that item? Simple to do these things. These things are not difficult. It's just organizations' willingness to go out and do all this for the customer.
Perfect. So one tech trend that has disappointed you.
Oh, that's easy. I think social has been terribly disappointing. Social could never get to know people and help connect people with each other the way it could have. In fact, this is one of the startups that I was co-founder at, where we are solving the hyper-local commerce problem using phone graph. What we're trying to do, if we and you're connected, I'm looking for a dentist, I'll see dentist on your phone graph as your recommendation to me as a dentist, right? So I think that's where I think true persona, true identities get revealed. And that's where there's no, and the monetization also, right? because right now it's not targeted enough, and it's not target. Now the privacy laws are a significant headwind to that as well, right? Because the way social has gone about monetizing is not something that is amenable to a lot of countries and their policies.
Absolutely.
So I think social has been a disappointing trend. It could have done so much more. Look at classifieds, look at jobs. It is so broken still, right? Classifieds is not a solved problem pretty much anywhere in the world today. If I need to buy a used car, it's a broken problem, right? If I want to buy real estate, it's a broken problem because I don't get to talk to 5 people who might have worked at Accenture like me and who might have bought a property in that project. So yeah, great. Social is unleveraged.
Yep. One good book recommendation for people?
Okay, so I love to read. So one book that I have been reading off late and which has inspired me to do the system thinking framework is Peter Senge's The Fifth Discipline. It's not one of those new books which is driving a lot of attraction right now. It's a relatively old title, but it's phenomenal. I mean, when I read that, I could connect with pretty much like every line. It's just fantastic learning. The whole book, The Fifth Discipline.
Yeah, it's a great reading. I think Fifth Discipline. I think time for everyone to dust our old copies off and maybe reread it.
Yes.
One good person podcast to follow that you would recommend to people?
I think, yeah, so that's a tough one. I think Naval, I think will be one. I think he has published his almanac as well recently. So he's definitely
top of mind.
Naval Ravikant. Yes. At Naval on Twitter. I think this is a great point. And I think, again, it's an example of how social doesn't work today. So like which product folks to follow, which technology folks to follow, which design folks to follow is such a difficult problem to solve. I have to literally go and solve it every time I have such a question. There's no solution ready-made.
And finally, one key driving belief in your life.
I think that will be very easily be trust. I think I start all my relationships, all my work with trust till there is demonstrated evidence of betrayal of that trust or diminishing of that trust. I think and that's a fundamental principle belief that everybody needs. I know it's so easily broken and so frequently broken, and I have suffered because of that belief of mine to start trust with the trust. And some people will take advantage, but that's a belief I have that we all need, not just as professionals, but as humanity. So I think that's how we should be.
Wonderful words, Rohit, to bring to an end our MartechBrain conversation. I think it was a fascinating tour into the world of product management. I think the canvas that Rohit put out, I think is a must sort of backdrop, I think, for any company wanting to go through a digital transformation. Thank you very much, Rohit, for being here today with us. And friends, we'll be back with another edition of MartechBrain next week. Thank you, Rohit.